Hello and welcome to our Middletown podcast. I'm Byron McCauley, Communications Manager for the City of Middletown. And today we have a really special show. We're going to talk a little bit about economic development. We're going to talk a little bit about some projects that we actually have here that many of you have seen and heard about if you've been downtown. And then finally, we've got some very special guests later on in the program. But let's just get right to it. Nathan Cahall, who is the Economic Development Director and the Assistant City Manager. Welcome, sir.
That's quite the title, I have to say.
Yeah, it is quite the title. And, you know, around here, we just call you the brain because you know everything, you know a little bit about everything, you know a lot about economic development and managing this city. So I'm so glad to see you. It's been a little minute.
It has been.
Yes. Yeah. So Nathan, you know, talk a little bit about what you're doing here in the city, because you've been here now for, man, you're running up on
2 years.
That's right. So I mean, so tell us a little bit about what you do, where you came from.
Yeah.
And I do see that UD shirt that you're wearing. So I'm not going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about a basketball game involving LSU choking at the end yesterday in the Charleston Classic.
We're not going to talk about that. That's something that we just have not.
We'll talk about it later. All right.
Yes.
No, thanks, Byron. No, I think coming to work here every day for the city of Middletown is not only a blessing, but it what we have going around town is so motivating. We are a community on the march, quite frankly. We're turning the curve on so many things.
Yeah.
From a development standpoint, we have some very exciting projects across the entire city, both new development and redevelopment. I know you folks may have seen in the news media over the last several months the progression of a very large mixed-use development near our interchange there on 75, there at the Union Road and 122. That project is continuing to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 50-plus acre mixed-use development, anchored by a new planned event center, a mixture of retail, office service, residential, and some recreational components as well. And we are on track, and fingers crossed, we're on track to break ground on that exciting project here towards the end of the first quarter next year. Isn't that far away?
Right. We're right on the cusp, man. We're about to be in 2024.
So that's a large project, but a lot of what you do and the benefits that we see in any community like ours are all of the little, I won't say hitting home runs, but it's the singles and doubles that move the runners along the base pads. And we have some really good infill projects going on we'll get to. And we also have some new development. We have some new development near the hospital with both some housing components as well as some new industrial offerings and I'll say R&D type industrial. They'll be breaking ground very soon. Some of it's actually underway right now. On some of our redevelopment sites, though, which is really exciting, is that I think as we speak, we have demolition activity happening at the old paperboard site there.
That's right. That's right.
Which the bulk of the demolition should be completed here in the next several months, and that's actually when the real work starts. The demolition isn't the real work; it's the fun work. It is. It's great to see. It's great to see. Yes, and it shows progress. But then the city will then have to, because of the nature of that site and hand in hand with the Highway EPA and others, we'll be working on some remediation and some other work that'll prime that land for redevelopment here. Probably, hopefully, I'm always the optimist. I'm thinking at the end of next year, we will not only have a sign off by EPA, hopefully, but we will also have a plan of action for that redevelopment to really spark some growth in that area of town. Has been, alluded to as well previously by City Council and our public meetings and in the media too. We're working on a partnership with development group Wayland Ventures for the redevelopment of several properties in our downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're anxious to see where that leads and the positive impact that we see there with that.
You mentioned downtown, and a lot of people, when they come through Middletown, they don't venture off the interstate. You talked about all that wonderful development with Atrium, but they don't necessarily venture off the interstate to come into downtown to see the changes that we really have going on here. It's a loss when you don't come.
It is. There's a lot of hidden gems in our downtown, our original commercial core of our city. We have some great retailers and restaurateurs and other service providers here in our downtown. And I think the next project we'll be talking about is yet another little ingredient to the stew pot that is going to, we hope, kind of spark some renewed interest, renewed vitalization in our downtown.
That's absolutely wonderful. Now you talked a little bit about the stew pot, and I want to. I don't want to necessarily harp on that. You also mentioned. Did you talk? You had an analogy about baseball and hitting.
That's right.
And singles and triples. LSU baseball has won a couple national championships
for that,
and Dayton has not. So I'm just gonna leave that there because
baseball's a bonus.
That's not anything that we want to talk about to our listeners and the people who are going to be watching our mugs here. Nathan Cahall, Assistant City Manager, Director of Economic Development. Yes, a big title, but it's a very important title. You handle the minutia a lot of times. The fun stuff, a lot of times, is the end of your minutia.
That is right. Yeah. So our office, our staff here in the City Manager's Wing in Economic Development, it's how do I say this? Our office work, our work in the community is about 360 days a year of banging your head against the wall, so to speak, with about 4 or 5 days sprinkled in where we're doing the exciting things, the things that you see in the media, the groundbreakings, the grand openings, the announcements of new jobs and new companies coming to town. But it takes a village to make that happen, and our staff works behind the scenes with not only our business community and our residents, but also our other departments and offices here in the city organization to make those projects a reality, get them across the finish line. So what is maybe not appreciated by the general public at times and others looking from the outside in is that these projects usually are a result of upwards of a year of back-end work and assistance and negotiations and the like to make things happen.
It's kind of like the sales cycle, right?
It is.
You got 18 months a lot of times.
It is.
Before you actually close the sale.
Exactly. And, we work with a lot of projects. We have good partnership with Jobs Ohio and Ready Cincinnati, and we pursue a lot of those site selection processes day in and day out. And it's like going big whale hunting. You come up there, see a lot, but you have to continue to fish.
That's right.
But what's important, though, too, is that what's really important for any community for its economic vitality and sustainability is to also focus on what I'll say is the mutual fund approach.
Right.
Is that, yes, it splashes in the Cincinnati Enquirer or on the local news when, company X comes in with, 500 jobs and we're all like, man, we want that at times, and we do. But what's also important is those little singles and doubles. Absolutely. Those companies that are, 30, 40, 50 employees and helping them grow day in and day out. And our staff does a wonderful job reaching out and meeting with all of our businesses as much as we can. For retention and expansion visits, because here's the thing, from a city for our well-being for Middletown is that you don't necessarily want to be exposed to 1 or 2 or 3 very large employers. Mm-hmm. You want a nice spread so that if unfortunately a business goes out of town or consolidates or downsizes, there's 10 other companies out there that are sustaining or growing.
So, absolutely. Along that same line of small businesses, that sustainability, as people see this and listen to this, we're talking around few weeks, actually. Well, it's in a few days, small business Saturday, right? Yeah. We're talking about that. Yes. We know small business drives the majority of the economy, those singles and doubles.
Yes.
Do we have any sort of marketing plans? I should know this, right? But what I know, we talked a little bit about what Small Business Saturday and small businesses in Middletown, primarily, they mean to us.
Yes. I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of our small businesses, are in support of larger businesses, but they provide those services, those subcontracting opportunities, those goods, those, folks need places to eat, they need places to shop, they need those contracted services. And what's really important, like I said, is that if we as an economic development department have an opportunity to bring in, 10 companies that have, 30 employees instead of one company with 300, we want it all. But
yes,
it's actually better, I think, and is more protective of the community's, sustainability over time, that you have that spread of businesses across the board, because it absorbs those ups and downs of the market from time to time.
Yes.
At least this morning.
Assistant City Manager, Economic Development Director, again, you mentioned the stew pot earlier.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been calling us, writing us, responding on social media. Hey, what's that big old thing that's happening across the street from the city building? I'm seeing some querying. It's downtown. What the heck's going on? Is it a covert plan that Middletown is doing over across the street?
Yes. We've been hearing a lot of banging
A lot of banging.
Yep.
Banging from like 12 stories of big hydraulic.
Yep. Driving those piles
in the ground. So what would cause something like that to pile deep into the ground?
So that is that project. That's our CSO Basin project, and that is part of our federal consent decree with EPA. So, like a lot of older communities, our sewer system in probably about 30-40% of our city's original core developed area has what's called combined sewers. So that means both what we may flush down the toilet or goes down to our kitchen sink is also what is also combined with what's collected from rain runoff. So the catch basins in the streets and drains and maybe in your backyard all flow into the same sewer system, and then ultimately feeds to our sewer treatment plants. The issue with that is that when we have large rain events or we have prolonged rain events, we get a lot of discharge that hits our sewer plant and affects its ability to process and treat that wastewater within our licensed parameters in terms of dissolved solids and suspended solids and other bacterial levels and everything else. And so what that project is part of that decree to help from an environmental standpoint, water quality standpoint, meet the requirements that we need to meet. We really have two options as a city. We can either separate our storm from our sanitary sewer, which is incredibly, incredibly expensive. And there are communities across the country that are in the midst of doing that in certain older parts of their towns.
Right.
In this case, what we're doing is we're building it's about a $55 million project, give or take. And it's a large holding facility that is like you'll see in some of these developments. They'll have a retention pond out front of their shopping center or office park,
and they'll put some nice shrubbery around it.
Exactly, and we'll get to that here in a second.
Yes.
And so what we have here is we have a collection area that will absorb. It's like a bulletproof vest. It'll absorb that discharge, that surge of stormwater and sanitary sewer flow, and then we'll store that for a certain period of time, and then pump out into the sanitary sewer system that eventually reach our treatment plant. What that allows our treatment plant, when we have large rain events or prolonged rain events, it allows it time so that we don't have so much flow coming into our sewer plant that we're not able to treat it to the very high level that we have to. And so it's not it's not a glamorous project, but it's a very, very necessary project for good environmental stewardship.
Yeah.
Now, while we're at it, we thought, hey, it'd be a great idea that instead of just digging a very large hole in the ground with a lot of appurtenances and facilities underground and a little bit above, is that we also have an opportunity there to enhance and dovetail into our strategy for the redevelopment of our downtown district. And so as part of that project, once all the underground work is done or whatnot, our residents and our businesses will see the construction of a new public park along that entire.
So it's like the duck that's swimming, right? The duck paddles are going right.
Yeah.
On top is just smooth.
Exactly.
That's kind of how. But you talked about Kevlar, which bulletproof vest.
Exactly.
So it's not a big pit of Kevlar.
No.
It's more like the duck swimming.
Exactly.
And on the top.
Exactly.
I think it's important to note as well, to get back into the minutia just a tad. The public really never sees what we're talking about as far as the heavy rain events, right?
No.
This is strictly an EPA regulation that back in the 1800s when this city was founded, we didn't have anything like that.
Didn't exist.
Right?
Exactly.
So now that we know better, we're doing that.
We are.
And so this is sort of a
So this is an example of the city keeping its promise and its commitments to our environmental partners, both at the state and federal level, to make sure that we maintain the highest level of water quality as we treat our runoff.
Wonderful. And now the sexy part. Talk about that part, because that's what I'm excited about. I hear that we're going to have some different things, and obviously, since this is going to be finalized by the end of 2025, we're going to be under budget and on schedule, I suppose.
Of course.
Tell us about this park-like setting that we're going to get here, where people will be able to come to this developed thing.
So this project is what we call a design build. So we're designing some of the things as we go. And so with our design team and construction team staying on time and within budget, we now have developed three concepts for that park. But we're looking at a minimum, obviously some gathering space, some recreational offerings, whether that may be, I'll use the P word, maybe pickleball or some basketball courts. But more importantly, we see this as a programming opportunity for a lot of our events that we may have currently had in other places of downtown or at Sunset Park or others. And we're working towards I'll say an amphitheater area for performances, for events and the like. But we really see the opportunity to utilize the above ground portion of that project as a really nice, inviting gathering place for the downtown, and to really change the character of that section of Main Street.
Wonderful. Thank you for explaining that. I hope everybody hears that, because that has probably been the biggest question that we've had all month. So thank you so much, Nathan Cahall, Assistant City Manager, Economic Development Director. We appreciate your being here.
I didn't know it was an option.
Right. Well, absolutely. So the brain, again, you see why we call them that around here. Come back and see you.
I'll be here.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.